I was folding the small towels into the nursery drawer when my phone vibrated, just as the wind outside the window carried the scent of the first snow. Colorado State Patrol appeared on the screen, a line of text that made my heart drop. Mrs. Carter, your husband, Landon Pierce, has just been taken to St. Mercy. I held onto the edge of the crib to steady myself. Then the officer paused, his voice lowering as if afraid his words might shatter something fragile inside me, and he wasn't alone. A silence as long as a lifetime. And his wedding ring, it wasn't on his hand when we found him. The world tilted, and I knew nothing from this moment on would ever be the same again. I don't remember how I managed to get down the stairs or rush across the driveway to the parking lot. All I knew was that when I opened the car door, the cold rising from the leather seat sent a shiver through my spine. The snow was falling thicker than it had 10 minutes earlier, each tiny white flake clinging to the windshield like shattered pieces of memory woven together. I buckled my seatbelt, my hands trembling so much I had to grip the steering wheel with both hands. I didn't dare turn on the radio. Didn't dare listen to anything except my own heartbeat. The drive to St. Mercy was only 15 minutes from home. But that afternoon, every red light, every slow car ahead, every ambulance siren at an intersection felt like it was testing the last thread of calm inside me. In the rearview mirror, my face looked paler than the snow. My eyes were swollen not from crying but from the way I was holding back the tears gathering behind my eyelids, ready to spill at any moment. I was afraid that if I cried, I wouldn't be able to see the road. And more than anything, I was afraid that when I arrived, I would have to face something I could never forgive. The hospital gate appeared like a blur of white light in the blizzard. I pulled up at the emergency entrance, my heartbeat so sharp it hurt every time I took a deep breath. The smell of disinfectant mixed with icy air rushed against my face as the sliding doors opened. The first steps into the long hallway of Wing A felt like walking into another world, where every sound echoed and every passing glance lingered just long enough for me to know they had noticed my belly. The belly of a woman about to give birth, searching for her husband in the middle of chaos. I reached the intake desk and forced out his name. "And name?" "Patient name," the nurse asked, her voice steady but her eyes unbearably sympathetic. "Landon Pierce," I said, my breath unsteady. She looked down and typed a few lines, then a printed form slid toward me. "He's in the temporary observation bay, and, ma'am, I think you should know the person who was with him was also brought in." I swallowed with difficulty. "Name?" The nurse didn't answer, she simply tilted the paper so I could see it clearly. In that moment, something inside me felt as if it had fallen straight through thin ice. "Passenger, Mira Lane." Mira, the girl who often brought chocolate chip cookies to my door every weekend. The one with the warm smile and the familiar question, "Is the baby kicking more now, Rose?" A cold rush slammed into my chest, as if someone had opened a window I didn't know existed. I folded the paper. For a second, I thought I could crush it in my hand. But my hand was too weak, and that weakness made my heart ache even more. The nurse looked up at me, concern flickering in her eyes. "Do you need to sit down? I can get you some water." "No." I shook my head. Just show me where his room is." She pointed down the hallway to the left. I began walking, but each step felt 10 pounds heavier than the last. Along Wing B, the air felt strange, the scent of antiseptic thickened, the lights grew harsher, and an emptiness settled around me. My belly felt heavier too, as if the baby sensed something was wrong and pushed against me in frantic little kicks. I turned the corner, nearing the nurse station. An older nurse stood there, glasses on, her face stern but kind. "Mrs. Carter?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Your husband is stable now. A strong impact, but not life-threatening. He's being moved to observation." I gripped the counter and took a long breath. "Thank you. Thank you so much." The older nurse seemed like she wanted to add something, paused, then spoke gently. "The passenger. She's in the room next door. She's not seriously injured. But she seems, what? Very shaken." I couldn't tell what was rising inside me, anger, confusion, or just a small crack running through my heart. She handed me a clipboard to sign. I didn't look at the paper again. I knew I would lose whatever stability I had left if I saw Mira's name one more time. I signed quickly. The nurse placed a light hand on my wrist. "Do you want someone to walk with you?" I shook my head. The last thing I wanted was another witness to my collapse. The hallway leading to the observation rooms felt so long that I suddenly felt like I was walking through a tunnel with no end. Every step brought me closer to the truth, and every truth could change the direction of my entire life. I paused, placed my hand against the wall, and tried to steady my breath. From far away came the sound of a doctor's shoes and the soft beeping of monitors like my own heartbeat. Racing, room 14. I looked at the number with the eyes of someone unsure whether they wanted to see what waited behind that door. I raised my hand to the handle, but before I touched it, a movement from the next room caught my eye. The door of room 15 was slightly open, and through that narrow gap, I saw a silhouette so familiar my heart jolted. Dark hair, tied neatly, a cheekbone with a tiny freckle I remembered clearly from the times she smiled at me in the hallway, an arm wrapped in bandages, and vacant, dazed eyes staring into nowhere, as if she no longer recognized where she was. Mira Lane. The woman who used to lean down and gently stroke my belly every time we met in the elevator. Asking a question so sweet it had never once occurred to me, it could turn into a shard of pain. Rose? Was the little one good today? At that moment, the door of room 14 opened, and a young doctor stepped out. "Mrs. Carter, you're here. I'll take you in." I don't remember whether I nodded or simply stood still. I only knew my heart tightened, and something in the air, something small, something fragile had just snapped. Not exactly because Mira's name was on the paper. Not exactly because Landon's wedding ring was missing from his hand, but because I felt something was seriously wrong. Just not in the way I had thought. I stepped into the observation room in a strange state, as if my body had walked in first, while my mind was still stuck somewhere in the hallway, where I had just seen Mira's silhouette through the cracked door. The door closed softly behind me, shutting out the sounds of life outside, leaving only the thick scent of antiseptic and the cold white light that felt like it was seeping through my skin. Landon lay on the bed to the right, his left arm secured in a brace, his face pale and still enough that it scared me that if I walked too close, I might hear something I wasn't strong enough to handle. But what made me stop wasn't Landon. It was Mira. She lay on the bed to the left, her right leg bandaged up to the knee, her hair a tangled mess, her eyes swollen from crying. But Mira wasn't looking at me. She stared down at her hands, as if trying to gather the pieces that had fallen from a life she didn't understand how it had shattered so fast. And between the two beds, standing like a shadow separate from both, was Daniel Lane. He turned the moment he heard the door, his dark brown eyes sweeping across my face slowly. Too slowly to be surprise, but not slowly enough to be indifference. That look made me feel something strange, like he had been standing there for a long time, waiting for me, not waiting for news about his wife. I hadn't even taken another step when Daniel spoke. His voice was low, steady, without a trace of the panic or trembling you would expect from a husband told that his wife had just been in a crash with another man. "Finally, it's happened." The sentence struck my ears like a thin needle-piercing fabric, small enough not to be loud, but sharp enough to make my chest tighten. I stared at him, trying to find anger, sadness, betrayal, anything a normal person might show in a situation like this, but I saw nothing, only something that looked like he already knew. "What are you talking about, Daniel?" I asked, my voice both soft and hoarse. As if I wasn't sure I even had the right to demand answers in that moment, Daniel exhaled not a heavy sigh, but the kind of breath someone lets out when they open a door and see exactly what they expected. "I knew you would come," he said, his eyes shifting from Landon to Mira. "I also knew this day couldn't be avoided." I felt the air in the room tighten like a drawn violin string. Mira burst into harder sobs, as if that sentence had knocked away the last anchor keeping her steady on the hospital bed. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders trembling uncontrollably. I took another step, my legs feeling like stone. "Daniel," I said slowly, "what do you mean?" He didn't answer right away. That unsettled me even more. He looked at Mira, his expression nothing like that of a husband in pain. It was colder, farther, as if she was no longer the center of this story. Rose? Daniel said, turning back to me. I think there are a few things you need to see before I say anything. I blinked. What things? Daniel reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small object, a silver USB drive. Cold and gleaming under the light, Daniel stepped forward, lifting the USB high enough for me to see the faint scratches on its metal surface. Landon gave this to me 2 weeks ago, Daniel said, his voice neither loud nor quiet. And he told me, if anything happened to him, I had to give it to you. Why would he give it to you? I asked, the question slipping out instinctively. You two aren't even close. Not close, Daniel repeated, looking straight into my eyes. But some things, people can only say to someone on the outside. I wanted to sit down. To hold on to something. To find something solid. But my legs refused to move. Mira lifted her head slightly. Her voice frayed like a thread pulled to its final limit. Daniel. Don't do this. Not right now. Daniel turned toward her, his gaze sharpening so suddenly that I shivered. Not right now, he repeated. If not now, then when things get even worse. A cold rush ran down my spine. I didn't understand everything, but I understood enough to know that what was happening wasn't what I had thought. Daniel turned back to me. There's something very dangerous that Landon uncovered, he said slowly. And Mira got pulled in only because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Mira broke into sobs again. I didn't know anything. She choked. My sister is missing. I just wanted to find a clue. I didn't know things would end up like this. I looked at her. The initial anger inside me pulling back, making room for a shapeless confusion. Daniel exhaled sharply through his nose, as if fighting the urge to explode. Rose, he said, this isn't my story. And it's not entirely Mira's either. He extended the USB toward me. This is your story, and Landon's. I reached out, but my hand was shaking so badly that Daniel had to take my hand and place the USB in my palm himself. Something so small, yet it felt heavy enough to pull down an entire house. The doctor walked in at that moment, cutting through the dense air. He checked the monitor, looked over Landon's arm brace, and scribbled a few lines on the chart. He'll wake up in a few minutes, the doctor said. Still looking at the machines, you can stay if you want. Daniel murmured. You should stay. He'll want to talk to you first. I looked at Mira. She had her head bowed, tears falling uncontrollably onto the pale green blanket. Daniel looked at his wife for so long that I had to turn away, feeling like someone else's heart was being exposed too clearly in front of me. But that look, it wasn't anger. It wasn't disappointment. It was something closer to recognizing a bitter truth he had waited a long time to finally say out loud. Finally, it's happened. He whispered again. This time not to me but to himself. I looked at the USB in my hand, the coldness of the metal seeping back through my skin. Daniel stepped back, as if to pull himself out of the space between me and Mira. She still kept her head bowed, gripping the edge of the blanket, not daring to look at me yet, saying nothing more. On the left side of the room, a young doctor had just walked in, flipping the chart at the foot of Landon's bed. He wrote a few notes, then turned toward me. His voice soft but clear. He'll wake in a few minutes. When he does, it's best if you ask him directly, before the pain medication kicks in again. I flinched slightly. Ask him what? The doctor glanced quickly at Daniel, and then at Mira, as if weighing whether he should say more. He only replied. He said your name right before he lost consciousness. And there was one more sentence. I think you'll want to hear it from him. I tightened my grip around the USB. That sentence made my heartbeat skip, not from fear, but from the sense that the conversation ahead wouldn't be about a missing ring or Mira's name on an emergency form. Beside Mira's bed, the monitor began beeping faster because she turned too sharply. Daniel placed his hand on the rail near her, glancing at his wife briefly before turning back to me, his voice low and clipped. You should prepare yourself. Landon knows more than you think. I inhaled deeply, stepping half a pace back to steady myself. The air, cold as it was, carried the distinct feeling that someone was waiting for me to act, as if holding this USB was only the beginning. Outside in the hallway, the wheels of a gurney rolled along the floor with a steady rhythm. Pulling me back to the present, I looked at Landon once more. Then at the doorway